Welcome back to the Center in the City podcast. I'm your host, Wade Brill, and on today's solo episode, we're exploring the dark side of cultivating calm. In a world that feels so out of control and so loud and so uncertain, calm is what we're wanting. We're wanting peace. We're wanting some certainty. We're wanting some just ease. But there's a dark side of wanting all of that. And we're going to talk and unpack this together. So, wherever you're listening to this podcast, whether you're on a walk or you're cooking or you're driving, I welcome you to settle in and let's get centered. Before we dive into today's solo episode, I want to remind you that the Summer of Self-Care 6-week group coaching program is right around the corner, and the early bird discount is almost up. This sunny 6-week program is all about you getting out of the self-abandonment cycle and instead saying yes to yourself, practicing holistic care, learning how to listen deeply to yourself so that you can make more intentional choices in your self-talk, in how you nourish your body with food, how you move your body, what boundaries you create, how you rest and restore your energy. This program supports you thriving from the inside out by paying attention to you and your needs instead of getting wrapped up in the busyness and the overwork that you tend to find yourself in. Early bird discount expires at the end of May. Check the program out and sign up at wadebrill.com/summer of self-care. I've had this deep desire to do a podcast episode on this theme for a while now because here, whether it's in marketing, on Instagram for various things, myself included, so I want you to know I'm calling myself out here too, whether it's in coaching sessions or in intake sessions, I hear this deep desire that we want calmness. We want calmness. And I have to ask my clients or potential clients to dig a little deeper to what they're actually saying so that it's not just a jargony word. Now, I used to think that the opposite of anxiety was calm. And I think that's why in marketing, that's why it's used a lot. And of course, alliteration. I talk a lot in my keynotes about calm amid chaos. And what I mean when I say those words is really stability amid chaos. How can we feel centered, rooted, grounded amid the chaos of life? But what that doesn't mean is how can we shove or hide or paste over what we're feeling to just feel calm, something that's more pleasant. When it comes to anxiety, the opposite that I think we're all trying to work with here, and I include myself on this journey, and when I work with my clients, they're typically these very driven, smart, sensitive, self-aware, high-achieving women who experience anxiety. And it's learning how to stop overthinking and instead trust themselves so they can feel more deeply aligned and live and make more fulfilling and intentional choices in life. So the opposite of anxiety is trust. And yet we use calm a lot of the time because when we think of anxiety, we think of like static, we think of noise, we think of instability, we think of groundedlessness, right? There's no certainty. Everything is uncertain. And there's a sense of panic and dis-ease within the body. Now, when we cultivate calm, what can happen a lot of the time is calm can be used as a word for what I like to think of as self-regulating our nervous system. about bringing our nervous system back to homeostasis, back to this baseline where we're not in a hyper aroused activation or hypo aroused activation. Instead, we are in this space of feeling connected, present, and have capacity to be with the whole spectrum of life. So, calm can be another word for we're not hijacked, right? We're present. When we're calm, we're present. But sometimes, and this is the dark side of calm, is that sometimes when we experience calm or want to experience calm, it's like we're trying to take the motion of the ocean, the waves, and we're trying to flatten it and turn it into a still lake, right? We're trying to take some of that movement. Imagine you're in a little dinghy boat out in the middle of the ocean and you're feeling the waves underneath you. It's rocking your system. And so sometimes when we have this deep desire to cultivate calm, it's like we're wanting a flat surface. We don't want the boat to rock, right? We want stillness. But what can happen in those moments when we're trying to cultivate calm is that we try to shut down the waves that are in our system. So, for instance, if we're sitting in a meditation practice and we notice the mind might feel really loud, or we might notice there's some intense emotions, or maybe even just neutral emotions in the body, or sensations in the body of tingles or heat or flutters, or we feel tightness in our abdomen. When we try to cultivate calm, sometimes there's this inner instinct to just shut it down and shove it down. So what I mean by that is that sometimes people try to erase, to completely let go of what they're experiencing. And that can lead down a path of self-abandonment. That can lead down a path of learning how to ignore or distrust our own experiences because we're pushing it away. And we live in a culture that strives for pleasant experiences. The dopamine, the oxytocin, all of the pleasant hormones that get brought up to our brain are addictive, and we want more of them. And why wouldn't we want more of them in a world that also feels really heavy and overwhelming? It's like, of course, we want to then feed ourselves with really pleasant things. There's a balance, right? We need to embrace the unpleasant things so that we can also receive and accept the pleasant things. And if we are just trying to take this calm band-aid and plop it over the unpleasant things, trying to search and strive for a pleasant experience, again, we're shoving shit under the rug that eventually is going to make us trip up. And personally, I recognize this within my own practice, that I've gone through stages as I look back where I felt I had to cultivate calm, so much so that I was kind of white knuckling to it, to a place of survival. Like, if I wasn't calm, I didn't know what the fuck was going to happen. Like, maybe I was afraid I was going to lose my shit. I was going to get angry. Maybe I was going to speak my truth. Maybe I was going to rock the boat. Maybe I was going to ruffle someone's feathers. Maybe I was going to just create more chaos around me where that didn't feel like a time or a space where it didn't feel safe to do. So cultivating calm within me felt like the only thing that I could do. Now, in order for us to have clarity, like in order for us to look internally at our own inner landscape and understand what's happening, what are we feeling, what are we thinking, sometimes we need to get to a place, that homeostasis place, so that we can actually think clearly, right? That is part of bringing our prefrontal cortex back online and shutting down the amygdala, the emotional part of our brain that gets very activated. And when we're constantly in our emotional part of our brain, we can't think clearly. So there is truth that we need to regulate our nervous system. We need to come back to this homeostasis, but that coming back doesn't involve shutting ourselves down. What it involves is us looking and listening deeply. It's us learning to listen to what's here in this present moment. And can we fully accept what's here in this present moment with a lot of curiosity, with a lot of kindness, and allow it to be here? And when we can allow things to be here, we're not fighting, we're not resisting reality, we're not pushing away our experience, we're not abandoning our experience, we're not making ourselves wrong, we're not gaslighting ourselves. But instead, we get to embrace what is here. And when we can hold the present moment with an open palm, not gripping or grasping to it, when we can hold it just as it is, that eventually is like a snow globe, right? It settles. So imagine a snow globe being really shook up and all the snow everywhere and it's activated. And when we can just hold the snow globe in our hand and gently watch with curiosity, with patience, with understanding, with allowing, the snow starts to fall back down and you can look and see more clearly through the snow globe. And that's what we get to practice. Instead of just saying to ourselves, be calm, because there's an energetic difference in allowing there to be the whole spectrum, the unpleasant, the pleasant, the neutral, and then just saying to ourselves, be calm. It's kind of like imagine what you would say to a little kid who's crying, like, be quiet, be quiet. Right? When I hear that, it's like, oof, my inner child starts to hurt because I hear this sense of, I don't care that you're crying. I don't care that you're hurting for whatever reason, even if it's annoying to me as an adult. It's like, I don't care. Just shut up, shove it down, shut it off, stop it. So, calm can sometimes be talked about and used in this kind of way that can create a really unhelpful and sort of harmful effect on ourselves. For instance, let's say we're out to dinner with somebody, it could be a date, it could be a friend, it could be your partner, and they say something that really activates you, and you start to notice an internal storm of emotions, of anger, of frustration, maybe sadness start to erupt in your body. And you might then start to feel a tightening in your chest or your jaw or your fist. You might start to feel heat. You might start to feel this like kind of I want to like fight energy in your arms, or maybe you feel a shutting down, a kind of pulling away, a shutting off. Instead of saying to yourself, stay calm, be calm, I really welcome you to shift that internal dialogue and say, can you breathe into this moment? Can you allow whatever is happening to just be here? Because when you can do that, what it does is it shifts your attention to yourself, to your present moment experience. And you yourself get to acknowledge your own present moment experience. Instead of needing for somebody else to acknowledge it, you get to acknowledge it first. And when you can breathe into it and say, oh, I see all of this, I feel all of this. You know, imagine watching a thunder and lightning storm from a window, right? You're experiencing it all. You're watching the intensity of it unfold. And when you can breathe into it and say, may I be with this, right? You're growing your capacity to hold the uncomfortable, moments. And the more we can do that for ourselves, the more we then have capacity also for the joy, for the love, for the connection, for the pleasant moments in life. As you say those words to yourself, may I be with this? It's like watching the snow globe. Allow it to settle before you then find your words and express. But that is so much more powerful than saying to yourself, be calm, be calm. Because when you do that, it shuts it down. It feels like, for me, it puts this like band-aid over the ouch or the feelings. And it doesn't allow myself to fully express. And then what happens is the emotions go underneath the rug, as I mentioned earlier, and they fester and they grow, and more resentment and frustration builds. And then that rug turns into a big pile of things underneath it that I end up tripping over later. And it affects my relationships because it hasn't been fully expressed. Sometimes when my husband and I are in a heated argument, we're trying to be in the practice of saying, okay, can we take a breath together? Right? Can we slow this down? Instead of telling one person to calm down or be calm, it's like, let's allow what is here to be here. The word calm can also sometimes be masked for control. Right? When we say to ourselves, I want to be calm, it's sometimes coming from a place of fear versus a desire for peace or ease. It's coming from a place of, I want to be calm so I can kind of control the situation. I can control the situation. If the situation's controlled, that means, there's less anxiety. That means there's less uncertainty. I'm avoiding the things that might spike my anxiety. I'm avoiding the discomfort. So calm can sometimes turn into control. For instance, I remember hearing from a family friend once that they were going to have a baby and they were just really concerned with the fourth trimester. And she just kept saying, and he also kept saying, the husband and wife, like, I just want to have a calm environment. I just want the house to feel really calm and peaceful. And in reality, that's not going to happen. There's going to be screaming babies at time. There's going to be lack of sleep. There is going to be uh, a lot of, shifting of environments and the mess in the house, right? There's going to be a level of chaos. And yet, what I really hear her saying underneath that is, she wants there to be a relaxed environment. She wants there to be ease. She wants there to be flow. But when we sometimes say, well, I want a calm environment, it's coming from this place of control, right? I want to control all of the noise. I want to control all of the elements. And again, in reality, we can't do a lot of that. There's only certain things that we can control. So as we bring this episode to a close, I welcome you to really think for yourself, how do you use the word calm in your language, in your word choice, in your intentions and your desires? And pay attention. Is it coming from a place of ease and acceptance and allowing? Is it coming more from a place of control, a place of avoidance, a place of manipulation, a place of abandoning and disregard? So just notice these subtleties, really slowing down to discern how the word is being used and how you can be more intentional about how you use this word, and also know that it's okay. There was parts of me that recognized as I've reflected on this over the years of like, oh, wow, was I cultivating calm, like trying to force calm on myself in these moments just to keep the shit together? And I look back and I think, yeah, there were times. There were times where I was white knuckling to calm and pretending things were okay when they really weren't. And so I look back and I offer forgiveness to those parts of me that I abandoned, that I disconnected from, that I pushed aside. And so it happens. And with awareness, we get to make more intentional choices. So now, with my awareness of, oh, I was cultivating calm instead of just allowing whatever to be there, allowing there to be pain, allowing there to be heartache, embracing it. And sometimes, and I just want to emphasize this, like sometimes we have to be conscious that sometimes embracing the whole spectrum is too much for our system, right? So we have to titrate it in. We can't allow maybe too much of the unpleasant experience in because it might flood us. And I think as I look back, that was probably what was happening to me. It was I was so going through chemo and grieving my mom. There was times where I was just needing to cultivate calm and come to this pleasant place in order to have and build more capacity. And I couldn't allow for the whole spectrum or the whole spectrum that was there. I had to let it in slowly. And so I want to emphasize like that is the skillful way to do this work. And I welcome you to really work with a coach, work with a therapist, a somatic therapist, a somatic coach to understand how you're working with your body and your nervous system. But the intention of this podcast episode is to really just awaken you to how are you using the words and the language? How are you talking to yourself? How are you holding space for yourself? And where can you be more intentional about how you're talking to yourself, how you're using language, whether it's calm or ease or allowing, and notice the difference in your own nervous system, how it shows up. Thank you for listening to today's episode and letting me into your ears, your heart, your mind. I'm so curious to hear what's landed for you, what questions, what other curiosities come up, what even, disagreements you might have based on your own experiences. I welcome the conversation. So feel free to reach out to me on Instagram at OneWade or leave me a note linked in the show notes.